Greetings, urban farmers, gardeners, and healthy food visionaries. Farmer Greg here, and welcome to the 633rd episode of the Urban Farm Podcast, where every day we work together to educate and inspire you to become part of your food revolution. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while, then you probably heard me talk about our Edible Backyard Summit. It's a 3-day online food growing inspiration and education event that brings together thousands of people to learn practical tools for living healthy, self-sufficient lifestyles and growing your own food. If you enjoy the Urban Farm Podcast, then I can pretty much guarantee that you're going to love the Edible Backyard Summit. It's just like the podcast because it's free and you'll learn a lot from experts in their fields. And unlike the podcast, you'll get to see the presentations on your screen and have your questions answered live. The upcoming Edible Backyard Summit airs live September 14th through the 16th with informative presentations that food growers of all kinds will enjoy, whether you are an aspiring newbie or a seasoned expert, and whether you live in an apartment or have acres to grow on. And for this upcoming summit, we're going to do something a little bit different and special. The September 2021 Edible Backyard Summit is Best Of themed, meaning that we're going to be showing listener favorite presentations from the last 2 years. These are the cream of the crop presentations that people couldn't get enough of, and this is the only time and place you can watch them for free. You'll learn about some of the best plants to use in an edible landscape, regenerative composting techniques, patio farming for small spaces, how to build healthy soil that makes your plants grow like crazy, an ergonomic straw bale gardening technique, and lots more. To sign up for free, head over to ediblebackyardsummit.com. And if you have friends and family that love to garden, please invite them too. This is a great opportunity to do something fun virtually with other food growers in your life. If you're ready for some fall gardening inspiration for your most vibrant, healthy, and self-reliant life, I invite you to join me for the Edible Backyard Summit. Sign up at ediblebackyardsummit.com and get ready to create the edible yard of your dreams. Today is Farmer Friday, a quick gardening tidbit. Each episode will feature less than 10 minutes of essential content for your growing success. Today we're talking with Mike Biltonen of Know Your Roots about soil is not dirt. Welcome, Mike.
Thanks. Pleasure to be here.
I am so excited always to talk about soil as opposed to dirt. So let's just jump right in.
Sure. Well, it's no surprise to people who are in the agricultural world, whether it's as a hobby farmer, gardener, or, doing it professionally, that soil is a hot topic around the world these days.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care where you are, but, if we don't have good soils, we can't grow the things that we need to survive. And I'm not talking just about crops for our food, but also things that help to sequester carbon for climate change mitigation, but also for our forests and everything. And we are losing good soil, arable soil around the planet really quickly. And I believe it was 2020 that was the year of the soil. It may not have been. But anyway, so when I was an undergraduate student at Virginia Tech, I had a soils professor who basically the first thing out of his mouth, the first lecture was, soils are not dirt. Do not call soils dirt. And ever since then, that's always kind of stuck with me. And yet the reality is that we really do treat our soils like dirt.
Yes.
And the fact is that they are very complicated. And I would almost go as far to say is that they have a life of their own. They do have a life of their own. They're not just an organism, they're built of organisms. And yet we look at them as a physical construct of sand, silt, and clay, a few nutrients thrown in there, and we can grow things in it. Fact is that if we ignore the biological side of all of that, and it doesn't have to be a complicated discussion about biology, but if we leave the biology out, then we leave the life out of the soil. And that's the point where it really does become dirt. And what we've done over the years with so many synthetic pesticides and salt fertilizers and herbicides and too much tillage, just over and over tillage, losses of topsoils, we've lost the biology. And we have pretty much pushed a lot of our productive agricultural ground to the point of being unproductive dirt. But there are a lot of things that we can do if we begin to understand just some of the real basics of it. And so using things like organic matter, which everybody should be familiar with, and organic matter comes in so many different forms. It could be leaves out of your backyard, it could be food waste, it could be compost that you get from a local garden center. Here in the Northeast, we're using a lot of wood chips in addition to certain types of animal manure, whether it's composted or not, to have a really carbon and nitrogen rich organic matter that is critical, not just from a nutritional standpoint, but it also feeds the organisms, all the fungi and the bacteria that are so critically important in the soil, and not just for the health of the soil itself, but for the health of the plants that you're trying to grow, no matter what you're trying to grow.
Wow. And one of the things that you said was compost. And I am a big believer in actually finding local compost rather than buying something from a big box store that comes from 700 miles away. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, well, this has actually been a really interesting topic that I've been involved with for about the last 2 or 3 years. And by that, I have a friend who makes vermicompost. So he's
Mm-hmm.
basically taking yard waste and food waste. He's composting it normally, and then he's feeding it to the worms literally, and then they turn it into this super rich compost. A lot of compost, you don't if you don't know who made it, like if it's not local, you don't necessarily know what went into it. And so it's easy to have something that looks like a good rich compost that actually is not a good compost at all. And that's not to say that there aren't large producers of good compost, but if it's local, just like with your foods, you can ask them what went into it, how did they make it, and get a much better idea of really the vitality, the fertility about that soil, because of the, and we like to call compost soil because that's essentially what it is, but it gets you to a point where you understand that the vitality that that compost has is in and of itself is going to give you that in your farm and garden.
Yeah. One of my thoughts was is that if I bring in Phoenix, if I'm bringing in compost from Minnesota, the microbes are different there. The soil biology is different, I would think.
It is. There are many common microbes, but there's definitely ones that are, if they're going to have adapted to, say,
Mm-hmm.
a more moderate climate in Minnesota, they're not going to be really happy. And we like happy microbes. They're not going to be really happy in the desert Southwest. So you do need to, have a bit of an understanding of what kind of microbiology is going to be most successful in your area. And again, whether it's Minnesota or Phoenix, or central Minnesota or southern Quebec, every climate is going to be a little bit different, and microbes are going to react a little bit differently, or a lot differently,
Yeah.
to the environment that you put them in.
So I'm looking at dirt in my yard. What are three things that I can do to help build it into a healthy soil?
Well, depending on what kind of dirt you're actually starting with, typically where I like to go is to get hardwood chips and a good compost, or even if you can get some composted animal manure, to mix it all together and really kind of begin to feed that soil.
Mm-hmm.
Build that organic matter, give those microorganisms the food, the energy that they need to begin to bring balance back to the soil, to take that physical structure, that chemical, those, so the physical silt, sand, and clay, and the chemical, the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, and begin to bring it together in a very holistic complex that creates a vitality and a fertility that you're not going to get any other way. And then the one other thing, if you want to kind of take it just to one other level, is you can actually buy microbes to incorporate, and that's a very deep and complicated discussion. And some of this you could do like on your countertop if you wanted to, and
Mm-hmm.
others you couldn't. But and actually, I was having this conversation with my wife today because we had some milk in our refrigerator that went bad. But even milk that went bad is good. It has good microbes in it, and you could just incorporate that, and you've got some lactobacillus. Bing, bang, boom! You've gone from dirt to soil in a matter of a few months.
Nice. Yeah. One of the things that Kari Spencer is one of our professors at Urban Farm U, and she does a lot of teaching, and she is a huge proponent of don't throw away that old milk or yogurt. Put it in your gardens.
Yep. And ditto for things like eggshells. When we talk
Oh
about
yeah.
food scraps, it's not just about rotten watermelon rinds, but eggshells are super rich in calcium. You always leave some of that albumin behind, which is protein rich. You can do wonderful things which come just straight out of your kitchen, and you don't even need to go on the internet and try and find happy microbes plus. So,
Right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Would you tell our listeners a little bit about what you do and where to find you?
Sure. Yeah. So my wife and I own a company called Know Your Roots. We're located in central New York. I do primarily consulting with a wide range of farmers, organic and biodynamic, principally on the tree fruit side of things, although I do work with growers who are growing specialty crops, vegetables, doing a little livestock work, that sort of stuff. And I operate throughout the Northeast, though principally in Eastern New York. You can find us online at www.knowyourroots.com, and that is just one R. So Your Roots is just one R. We merged those. You could also give me a call at my phone number if you'd like. Text me. I'd love to chat with people, or mostly just email me at mike@knowyourroots.com. And yeah, but there's lots to find on our website. And I guess I will say the other thing that I'm doing is I've been doing, I don't know if it'll actually end up being 18, probably more than that, but been doing a season-long webinar series, which I'm going to continue to do year for year and update it each year depending on the conditions of the given year, as opposed to like one big seminar that talks about pomology or dirt or soil. I'm breaking it into little bits and pieces so we can learn as the season goes along and kind of hit on those points. So there's a lot of educational stuff that we do, workshops, seminars, etc.
Excellent.
So yeah, knowyourroots.com or mike@knowyourroots.com. You can find us.
Excellent. And we'll put that in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mike.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Urban Farm Podcast. Remember to listen for tips, advice, and resources to help you on your journey with urban farming. You can find us on the web at urbanfarm.org or send us an email to podcast@urbanfarm.org. In the words of Vincent van Gogh, great things are done by a series of small things brought together. Be encouraged that with each lesson learned and skill developed, you are one step closer in the direction of your dreams.